What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video here on fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Unfortunately, this is take two as the first recording completely just disappeared off my laptop. I've searched everywhere for it. But anyway, today we are talking about XG underachievers. We're talking about players that have performed well so far this season in terms of getting chances, but haven't scored enough of them. Of course, there is one man that has sparked on recording a video like this, and that is Darwin Nunez, who is on the list. He's not at the top of it, but he is quite high up it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the sort of top players that have underachieved their goals. We're going to go through the list, and then I'm going to highlight four of them that I do think we'll be talking about over the next few weeks as FPL assets as well. So what we've got here is the table. I have removed players that haven't played very many minutes, haven't got lots of starts, or have just missed one massive chance, for example. So I have removed those from the list. This isn't exclusive for everyone in the top, but it is the sort of main players that have started a reasonable amount of games. At the top, we actually have Jarrod Bowen, one of the big FPL assets from last season, has only scored twice so far this season and has 5 expected goals to his name. So an underachievement of 3, started 17 games so far this season, the biggest underachiever in terms of XG that we have. Not Darwin Nunez, Jarrod Bowen. So I think generally West Ham performances haven't helped this. Again, they've been creating chances for him. They've not been performing that well as a team. He has, of course, missed a penalty, which has contributed quite a lot to this underachiever. That's 0.75 expected goals, but still outside of that, you have 2.25 expected goals, and he'd still be very, very high up this list. 8 million, there are a lot of options in and around that price, which means his ownership is very, very low. A lot of us are not looking at him. I do think the chances are that Burn will start to turn the corner on his expected goals and start to maybe capitalise on these. However, with the way West Ham are performing, with the way they've restarted after the Christmas break, after the World Cup break, I don't think we'll be going and buying him anytime soon, given his price up at 8 million. Next down the list, we have Danny Welbeck. He's actually missed a couple of games recently due to injury, and it does look like Ferguson of Brighton actually is looking very good as a 4.5 million forward. Started the last game, scored twice, and did perform in the previous game before that as well. Don't expect Danny Welbeck to necessarily get back in the team. It could be Ferguson. I'm looking to actually buy him in my team. I've got Greenwood sat on my bench at 4.2, but if Ferguson is going to continue to start, I do think that I could be looking to upgrade him at just 0.3 million cheaper. But Welbeck is not a player I expect to be buying into, and I'm not sure I expect him to get back into the Brighton team anytime soon. Next down on the list, we have Watkins, who we'll talk about in a bit more detail, Darwin Nunez, Johnson and Gibbs-White are 2 on here. So we have 2 Nottingham Forest players. Johnson quite high up the list, Gibbs-White a lot further down the list. Both big underachievers. Now, first half of the season, they were missing chances. They were not performing well as a team generally, Nottingham Forest. But I do think there's a chance that we could be looking at a couple of Nottingham Forest players for our teams over the next few. They will be big differentials, but the next 4 fixtures are very nice. If you need to free up options because you've got the likes of Harry Kane with a double, Haaland with a double, De Bruyne with a double, there are some cheap options in there with a few nice fixtures on the horizon. A few others to pull out for you that we've got here. Diego Costa is a big one. No goals, 1.9 expected goals. Of course, he's only started 7 since he's been out Wolves. Wolves are a team that notoriously don't score a lot of goals, and it doesn't help when their main striker is missing chances like he has so far this season. If Wolves are going to turn their tide around, they do of course sign Matheus Cunha and from Atletico Madrid, so whether that's going to play havoc with Diego Costa's minutes, and maybe the manager has decided, if you're not going to score chances, I'm just not going to play you. Maybe he's going to be the super sub at the end. So he's in there, and he hasn't helped Wolves' performances so far recently. And then finally, just before we wrap up, a couple of Fulham guys in here before we go into the deep dives. We do actually have Andreas Pereira on here, and we have Willian as well. Willian is a really nice option. He's performed very well and actually picked up an assist in game week 19, whilst Mitrovic is my captain. Got the yellow card, of course. He did score, but 5 points is not what I wanted from him. And then Andreas Pereira in this list as well. A lot of you might have captained, a lot of you might have owned as well. So there's even more to come from Andreas Pereira. Although he's been a great FPL asset, there's even more to come from him. And actually, finally, we do have Mo Salah in this list as well. So normally you see Mo Salah on the complete other end. So Haaland is the biggest overachiever in terms of expected goals. Salah is normally the other end of the spectrum as well. Big overachiever. We actually see him underachieving here for his goals so far this season. 7 goals, 8.8 expected goals. So I have him in my team. I am a bit worried about the price I'm paying for him and the returns I'm getting, particularly with his assist being missed by Darwin Nunez in this as well. So I am considering selling him, but it is interesting that he is underachieving, whereas he's normally a big overachiever of expected goals. So the first deep dive we've got, who else to start with than the man who sparked on this video, which is Darwin Nunez, down to 8.9 million as a forward. He's scored 5 goals so far this season, 3 assists, and actually his expected goals and assists, he's not that far behind in terms of it because he's 9.07, but that's because he's overperformed his expected goals that he's had so far this season. 4 points per start. It's a lot of money to play for a striker. He's got a lot of chances, and I think we can all agree he's getting the chances, and at one point or another, those hauls are going to start coming. However, you look at the fixtures, Brighton away, Brighton performing very well, Chelsea at home. Chelsea are a very mixed bag at the moment, but tend to be a pretty resilient defensive side. Wolves away and then Everton at home. Those fixtures do not necessarily scream goals until you maybe get to the Everton fixture at the very end. If there are double game weeks coming in the likes of game weeks 20 and 21, even all the way up to game week 23 when Arsenal do double against Manchester City. Of course, if you are looking for a forward to downgrade, although I think the haul is going to come for Darwin Nunez, I do think Darwin Nunez up to Harry Kane if you've got the money, down to other options in there as well, like Callum Wilson, like Mitrovic, like Ivan Toney. If Ivan Toney doesn't get suspended, then of course I do think these are moves that you could do. If you decide to hold on to Darwin Nunez, I don't have anything against that. I do think he'll get chances. He's surely got to start scoring. But at some point, the likes of Gakpo are going to start playing. The likes of Firmino will be back from injury. The likes of Diego Jota will be there. And we don't know how Klopp's going to react to the amount of chances that Darwin Nunez has missed. Next up, we go to Leeds, and this is Aaronson, 5.5 million midfielder, one that was actually very popular quite early on in the season when people were picking between Aaronson and Rodrigo. The next 3 fixtures are one of the reasons I think we could be talking about them. Aston Villa, Brentford and Nottingham Forest. We looked at them in game week 17 and decided we're not going to go there. Their opening few fixtures are very difficult, but I do think that this could be a time that we could start to look into him. You might want to go with Rodrigo, who of course is playing up front for Leeds, but Aaronson is a big one, and actually he's underperformed his expected goals given the table we had at the start. So yes, Rodrigo has actually outperformed, but if things start to maybe go back to the norm of what we'd slightly more expect, Aaronson might see a bit more of an increase in returns, particularly goals, where he's only had 1 so far this season. 3 assists for him, 3.47 expected goals and assists. So he's actually outperformed his attacking returns expected, but he's expected to have a lot more goals and a lot fewer assists so far this season. So hopefully for him and anyone buying into that Leeds attack over the next 3 with the fixtures they've got, they could do really well, given he's only returned 2.9 points per start. You might go Rodrigo, but I do think Aaronson could be very good over the next few weeks. Player number 3 that we have is another cheap midfielder in Gibbs-White, our Nottingham Forest player that I've decided to pull out. For me, when I watch Nottingham Forest, he does tend to be the main attacking threat, the main creative force, the sort of main reason that they end up scoring goals. He did hit the bar, of course, against Chelsea with a fantastic strike. There was no good graphic of him at Nottingham Forest, so I did have to put a good one of him at Wolves. Otherwise, it was just going to be a massive blow up of a very pixelated face. That's all they had of him at Nottingham Forest. So 57 points so far this season, 3.7 per start, 2 goals, 3 assists, and 5.67 expected goals or assists. So of course, he's outperformed his expected assists, which makes it not look quite as distorted as maybe it did on the original table. However, the next 4 fixtures really are why I'm considering that Gibbs-White, particularly Brennan Johnson, not so much, who was also on the table, could be good assets for us. Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, Leeds at home, Fulham away in the next 4. Surely if Nottingham Forest are going to climb out of that relegation zone, this is a time they're going to have to look and think we need to pick up probably at least 6 points over the next 12. And I do think that Gibbs-White is the focal point of how they could do that. And the final asset that we have here is Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa. 7.1 million forward, has returned in the past couple of games, including scoring against Tottenham in their big 2-0 win away at Spurs. Aston Villa have looked much better under Unai Emery, and Ollie Watkins has been the main focal point of the attack, of course playing up there alongside Leon Bailey. Leeds, Southampton, Leicester in the next 2, followed by Manchester City. 57 points as well, the same as Gibbs-White. I did have to check that. 3.7 points per start, 3 goals, 4 assists, and 7.21 expected goals. Now, Watkins is a player that is likely to miss some of his chances. He doesn't necessarily live on the higher end of his expected goals. He does tend to underperform a little bit, but I do expect him to continue to perform very well under the new Unai Emery system. He seems to be the main focal point, and there's not many other players on the pitch that I think could end up taking a penalty as well. Buendia could do it. Coutinho's not starting, Ings isn't there as well. So there's a small chance that it is Ollie Watkins back on penalties. So at 7.1, if you are looking at a Darwin Nunez replacement, I think Watkins could be a good differential. So we've looked at the overall table of the main over and underperformers of expected goals. We've had a summary of the 4 key assets I think we could potentially be looking at over the next few weeks. Let me know what you think. Are any of these potential considerations? If you have Darwin Nunez, put it in the comment section. What are you going to do with him? I sold him going into game week 19, but I bought in Mitrovic at it wasn't really that worthwhile, to be honest. Let me know what you're doing with him if you still have him. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to Fantasy Football Scout if you have not already, and if you're enjoying all these FPL videos as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Like and subscribe before you go, but I'll be back again very soon.